Hello, and welcome to Law Talk. My name is John Celebrezze, and I'm the co-founder of the Celebrezze-Zangi Community Legal Education Project, as we call it, CZ-CLEP for short. Our organization provides continuing education about the judiciary and legislature to attorneys, judges, government officials, and the general public. As a career educator, I recognize early on how important legal matters are and how they impact our lives. I am the nephew of the late Anthony J. Celebrezze, who was the popular five-term mayor of Cleveland and a member of President Kennedy's cabinets. As a tribute to his lifetime commitment to the legal process, we dedicate this show.
John's special kimbler today is Judge Joyce V. Kimbler. She was elected to her first full term on Medina County Common Pleas Court bench in November of 2014. Judge Kimbler has been in courtrooms for her entire legal career. She has appeared before the Ohio Supreme Court, various Ohio Courts of Appeals, Common Pleas, and municipal courts throughout the state. She is the fourth female elected judge in Medina County. Judge Kimbler received her law degree from the University of Akron. She was admitted to the Ohio Bar in 1982. Judge Kimbler resides in Seville, Ohio with her husband, retired Judge James Kimbler, and her adult children. Let's now join John and his special guest, Judge Joyce V. Kimbler.
Joyce Kimbler, welcome to Law Talk.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's our pleasure. Well, to say this has been kind of an eventful year for you is kind of an understatement, isn't it?
Well, yes, you could say that.
I'll be the first to tell my viewers I knew Judge Kimbler when she was Attorney Kimbler, right?
Well, okay, a few short years ago.
Mm-hmm. I think you did that job for
29.
29 years.
Yeah. That's
for sure. Well, we're glad you're here, and I think to start out our show, Judge, maybe because this is your first visit to Law Talk, and we certainly hope you come back, but can you tell my viewers a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of dig into life on the bench.
Well, I've come a long way from a little girl in Springfield Township. I never thought that she would grow up to become a judge. Mm-hmm. My father always wanted me to get a real job and become an accountant, so I guess I've at least accomplished something to make him proud.
Well, you certainly have.
Well, I went to Evangel College. I got a degree in psychology, and then, like many people with psychology degrees, I needed to further my education.
Sure.
So I went on to law school, and I had 2 children while I was in law school, and I graduated from law school. I went into private practice for a while. I spent some time with the 9th District Court of Appeals. Probably one of the most formative experiences in my life was the time I spent working for Judge William Baird, both as a trial court judge and as the 9th District Court of Appeals.
You were a research attorney for the 9th District?
I was a judicial attorney for the 9th District.
I see, because we've had 9th District, well, most recently, Julie Schaefer was on as a member of the 9th District, so we've had 9th District judges on our show. So you actually work there. I understand you actually practiced before the House Supreme Court.
I did, and it's fascinating the way the courts are set up in Ohio, because the trial court judges are the decision-making branch of government. The appellate court judges, I think of them as the error correcting, and then the Ohio Supreme Court is the policy setting level.
See. Well, how was it before the big court?
Terrifying.
Really?
Absolutely terrifying, yes.
Well, apparently you did okay. I from personal experience, I could tell you that I was only there once, and it was actually I was sponsoring another attorney from out of the state. It is somewhat of a humbling experience, I will say that, when they're kind of up above you like that. But okay, well, how many jury trials have you been involved in?
I've done over 100 jury trials.
Wow.
I've done well over 54 appellate decisions, and then my 5 times in the Ohio Supreme Court.
Well, that's great. Okay, shifting gears. So, ladies and gentlemen, you know a little bit about Judge Joyce Kimbler. I'm sure you're aware your husband, Judge Jim Kimbler, has been on the show a few times.
I'm not nearly as entertaining. I have to tell everybody that.
Well, I don't know. I'm probably not going to render a decision or comment on that at all, Judge. Let's talk about your first year as judge. And it's hard to believe it is 1 year now. It's just about a year.
Well, in fact, 1 year ago, right now, I was down at my first week in new judge school.
Right.
Yeah, and that was a fascinating experience, getting together with new judges from all over the state, seeing the different backgrounds that everybody brought. And the interesting thing for me was that many people came with a criminal law background, but there was only about 5 of us there that had civil law backgrounds.
Right. On the subject of your civil law, just backtracking a little bit, you worked for Nationwide Insurance for a number of years.
Yes, I was a trial attorney with Nationwide Insurance for 29 years.
29 years.
Which gave me just such a wonderful wealth of experience because basically if you can insure it, you can sue and litigate over it. Yeah.
Okay, so we start out a year ago. Hard to believe a year's gone by. Judge Joyce Kimbler goes off to new judge school, and here we are back in the saddle, so to speak. So, what do you think? What are some of the high points?
Just a fantastic year.
Really?
There has been so much that I have learned and so much breadth that I have seen here in Medina County. By going to the new judge schools, they actually had 2 of them for us, and it covered a wide variety of areas, from the basics like how to take a plea to controversial subjects like medically assisted opiate treatment.
Yeah, which is we're going to talk a little bit more about it as we go through, but that's getting to be quite the topic. And okay.
I also went to a week worth of training on capital cases because we do have an upcoming death penalty case. And I had the privilege of going to the National Drug Court Seminar in Washington, D.C. for a week to get a national perspective on the drug court problem.
Well, I have to believe that as long as I've known you, you've always been a very busy person, but this has probably been one of your busier years when you think about your traveling as well as getting back on the bench. As far as jury trials before you, Judge Joyce Kimbler, I guess a number might be appropriate. About how many?
I think this year we've done 9 criminal cases and 5 civil cases.
I see.
And while that doesn't sound like a lot, that's actually, we've done more than one a month on that at that rate.
As a trial lawyer myself, I certainly appreciate the fact there's a lot of time and effort goes into a trial. Okay, well.
And let me put in a plug for the people that served on the juries in those cases. It is a commitment from the voter, from the citizen to come and sit on a jury, and we could not function without them. And there is just absolutely nothing more exciting than to sit and watch a jury at work. So I really want to say thank you to all the citizens who came and spent their time in the courtroom.
I had a law professor once said that in our system of jurisprudence, the jury trial is the envy of the world. And I think it's probably a lot of truth to that.
Well, when you say that, I had a jury trial that I tried when I was a trial attorney down in Stark County, and I'm doing the voir dire, examining the jury. And I say to them, what perceptions do you have? And sometimes people would have negative perceptions. They would be a little cynical about jury trials. And this one gentleman said, you have the best system in the world. And I said, I'm flattered to hear that. Why do you think that? And he said, because I'm a naturalized citizen. I come from Venezuela.
Sure.
And he said, when you compare what you do here in America with what they do in other countries, he said, that is what makes you proud to be an American citizen.
Excellent point, Judge. Okay, busy year, orientation year, civil trials, criminal trials. To ask you this next question might be a little ridiculous, but I've got it on my faithful clipboard here. Challenges of the first year.
Well, the challenges of the first year really come with doing completely new activities, things that I hadn't done in the past, which primarily involved criminal work, and a lot of that dealt with the sentencings. As I said, at New Judge School, they taught you principles of things, and here's all the principles of sentencing and the sentencing laws, and the fact that the goal of sentencing is to protect the public and to punish the offender. But they don't tell you how to do it, what to do, what words to say, how to put them together in the right structure. So to learn the proper way to go about imposing a sentence, and then to do it in a way that is fair to the person who is in front of you.
Sure.
You never forget that the person who is in front of you is some person's loved one. No matter what they've done, no matter what you're sentencing them for, this is a human being that somebody loves.
Yeah.
And so when you're sentencing them, you're not just affecting them and their future, but you're affecting their entire family, their friends, and really kind of the community at large.
Okay. All right, so excellent point. Many of us maybe not thought of that way. But yeah, when I come through your courts typically on Thursdays, and that I think is your call day where you you see a lot of people on that particular day. Not that you don't see people on the other days, but as you prepare for each sentence, I take it it's something that you just don't make up your mind on Thursday.
No.
So for the benefit of my viewers, what are some of the factors what are some of the things you do in preparing yourself and in preparing these sentences?
Well, in preparation for sentencing, first you receive from the probation department a pre-sentence investigation. And anytime someone can be considered for community service in the state of Ohio, by statute, they're required to have a pre-sentence investigation done. And in the pre-sentence investigation, they go over the facts of the offense, how it happened. They ask the person, whether they're guilty. Does the person acknowledge their guilt and take responsibility? Are there some underlying mental health issues? Was the person a veteran, and is this some sort of related to a trauma that they suffered while in the service? Is there some underlying substance abuse problem? Are there health issues? What is the nature and the background of the person, in addition to what is the specific activity that they did for which they are now being sentenced?
I see.
Then you look at their criminal history. You look at what activities they may have done to rehabilitate themselves. You look at whether they've been on probation before, have they been successful, and you get a view of the person, and you say, okay, what can we do that will protect the public, will punish the person, but also will guide them towards rehabilitation if it's possible, because that is ultimately what you want to do, is you want to restore this person to being a fully functioning citizen.
I see. So this pre-sentence investigation report is something you receive several days before you actually pass sentence.
I generally get it a week in advance.
Okay, and this is really a very, very important document to a judge, because this is how you kind of get to know the person, his background.
Right.
And okay, and you mentioned, and I think we'll probably pick up a couple of times with your drug court as well as we get through the agenda here, but this idea of, we're hearing a lot more and more about it. I was reading the paper again today. Heroin use getting to be more and more serious here in Medina County and all over the place. These are factors you have to take into consideration as far as, do we have an addiction situation with a defendant?
It is. I mean, one of the things you look at is, did drug use contribute to the underlying crime? In talking with the sheriff's department and the police chiefs, I've been told that 85 to 90% of the underlying crimes that are committed are done by people who have a drug addiction problem, but they are just trying to get money for that problem.
I see.
So, theoretically, if you can help people with their drug abuse problem, if that's their crime, then you're going to help them with that.
Sure.
And if you can deal with the drug abuse problem, then you can get rid of some of that underlying crime. So it's a very efficient way to do it if you deal with the underlying root cause.
I think as lawyers, we throw terms around, and I always make a point of trying to highlight some of this for the benefit of my viewers. But sometimes I've sat in your courtroom, and you've, either during the time that you set bond, or maybe even part of the sentence, but I've heard you say, I'm going to assign you to the SAM program, which I take it as an acronym. Yeah. What does that mean?
The Substance Abuse Monitoring Program. And what I have learned is that whether I'm establishing bail or putting a person on community control, if I can find out if they have an underlying drug problem, then that can help me deal with the underlying problem. The Substance Abuse Monitoring Program is a program where the person is required to call in randomly and then appear for random drug tests, so that they never know when they're going to get the call, they never know when they're going to have to give the test, and so you can pick up any type of underlying drug problem.
So that's interesting, Judge, because you might have, you'd almost think on its surface, well, yeah, she'll set the SAM program for people who are being charged with substance abuse, drug sales of drugs, whatever. But actually, you can probably learn something about somebody who actually came before you, let's say, on a theft.
Right.
Because if he or she doesn't call in or else tests positive, you've now found something out here, didn't you?
I did, and this would be the perfect point in time to say that at the end of my first year, the one thing that I have to do is I really have to thank my colleague, Judge Collier, because he has been so invaluable and so kind this year in just sitting down and talking to me and giving me ideas, and in watching him and watching what he does. Sure. And that was actually one of the techniques that I learned from Judge Collier. is that if I can, when I have them in the courtroom, get them on a substance abuse monitoring program, I can then identify if there's any underlying problems going on.
Well, that's real. That's very interesting, and actually, well, maybe you even know this, but my viewers do. It's been several years ago, but Judge Collier has a drug court as well, and actually we devoted a whole show to that, which was very interesting. Okay, another one, alphabet soup, so to speak, that lawyers kick around. But I've heard you say it. Okay, I want you to. You're going to the Medina County Jail, but I want you screened for CBCF. What's that mean?
That means community-based correctional facility. When I use the term community control sanction, what people oftentimes call probation, there's actually two forms of community control sanctions. Well, three if you count financial community control. But there's residential community control and non-residential community control. Residential community control are things such as the Medina County Jail or a community-based correctional facility. And in the community-based correctional facilities, they can get then treatment for drug problems.
I see. Okay.
Then non-residential community control is what we normally think of as probation.
This must be a program, Judge, that obviously must have some merit to it, because I was reading in a local paper very recently they're actually expanding the Lorraine facility for CBCF. So this is apparently a program that you use quite a little bit?
Well, we do use the Lorraine Medina Community-Based Correctional Facility quite a bit. I don't know if you're referring to the community-based correctional facility, or if you're talking about LACATA, which is a non-residential alcohol treatment program that is expanding into Medina County.
Oh, I see.
Or if you're talking about CATS, which is the Cuyahoga Assessment and Treatment Facility, which presently is just in Cuyahoga County, but they're trying to open up a branch here in Medina County. And it's residential.
Okay. So the nice segue into my next question. Programs instituted this year, since you've been on the bench.
Well, the programs that have been instituted since I've been on the bench, things such as LACATA and CATS, I have not actually instituted, although I have met with the people that want
Sure.
to institute them and talked about getting facilities in Medina County. One of the big problems that you have in Medina County is that you don't have a lot of treatment facilities. You don't have a lot of inpatient or outpatient treatment facilities presently. I think having LACATA come in will make a big difference in outpatient treatment, and I think having CATS come in will give us an inpatient treatment alternative. As it is now, if I want to send somebody for inpatient, I basically have to send them to the CBCF in Lorraine, Medina, which is actually located in Lorraine County, or use a facility such as Oriana House over in Summit County. But the other things that we have done this year is we've had to go through the recertification for our mental health court and our drug court. You indicated that Judge Collier was previously on for his drug court, and technically what he has is an early intervention procedure. It's not a state-certified drug court. It's slightly different and has different goals and different outcomes.
So how does yours differ?
Ours is different in that to be a certified drug court, you have to meet standards that are established by the Ohio Supreme Court, and you have to have them come through and do a inspection. They sit through your drug court. You have to meet certain challenges that they have. And it's based upon research done by the University of Cincinnati, which then established what they found to be the best practices.
I see.
And you have to meet the best practices. An example is when the gentleman came and he was inspecting my drug court. He actually sat over there and counted how many times you gave someone positive reinforcement when you spoke to them versus how many times you gave them negative reinforcement. And the goal is that you were supposed to be giving them 4 times of positive reinforcement to every 1 negative. I didn't know that, and luckily we passed that. But those are the types of set standards that they have. Another one is that you are supposed to spend a minimum of 3 to 5 minutes with each person that you're interacting with. I would invite your viewers to come and watch a drug court. I mean,
it'd be fascinating.
It's public, it's open to the public, and I think people would be very surprised at how much courage it takes to come every other Wednesday and stand up in front of a judge and in front of your peers and have your behavior for the last 2 weeks analyzed.
Okay, the invitation is there, ladies and gentlemen. Sounds like it'd be a very worthwhile experience. On the subject of that, and we're going to then shift gears here, there's another program which it seems to be pretty popular amongst at least the members of our local bar, called treatment in lieu of conviction.
Well, treatment in lieu of conviction is not really a program. It's a statutory method by which a person who has no prior felony offenses can enter into a program, and now I just use the word program.
Okay, it's all right. I mean,
and if they successfully complete the program, then at the end of the period of time, the charges against them are dismissed, and they do not have a felony charge. Now, when I meet with people and they want to enter into the treatment in lieu of conviction program, I say to them that I will, you will come before me and you will plead guilty, but I will not find you guilty at that time, but instead I will put you under the control of the probation department for a period not to exceed 3 years. And God bless the probation department, they've heard me say this, but I want to then say, I'll put you under the control of the probation department for a period not to exceed 3 years, and may God have mercy on your soul. Because I don't think any of us would want to have our lives put under the control of other people for a period of 3 years.
Well, yeah, I guess I fully understand that, but being a practicing attorney myself, I've sent several of my particularly my younger clients, first-time offenders, and my pat line is, life's a lot easier without a felony than with one.
Definitely.
So every time I see at least one of my clients getting, or anybody else's, come before you, I think this is a good thing. I mean, and motivated people, I guess you'd somewhat like a second chance. But it does exist. It is, we don't have to go into great detail, but just for the record here, not everybody gets in the treatment in lieu of. If you got a string of felonies on you before, you're not going to be considered for it. But for our first-time felon, okay, I'm going to shift gears, Judge, if I can. I don't want to, there's a question here that I just didn't want to run out of time on, so I'm going to jump ahead if you don't mind. All right. What are your goals for the coming year? I mean, I know you're a goal-oriented judge, attorney, lady, but what are you looking at now? I mean, you not that it was, I mean, it was an orientation year. It was your first year. We all had to go through our first year. And it sounds like it's trying to be a pretty interesting year for you.
Oh, very interesting.
But now we'll be going into the second and third, and we're looking at a 6 all total here, assuming you
12. Let's go for 12.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So, but I'm sure you'll have ideas for year after year, some of which I'm going to let you back to the show to talk to me about if you'd be so kind to come back. But what's your goals for the coming year?
Well, when I talk about the fact that we had to be recertified this year, it was an entire year process to become recertified for the mental health court and the drug court. Those are 2 separate courts. And so we started in January, and we just received notification about 2 weeks ago that we have received our recertification. So next year then our goal is to expand the drug court and the mental health court, to expand the services that are being offered, and to expand the number of people that are being entered into the program. Both the mental health court and the drug court have quarterly meetings where we sit down and we evaluate who do we have, what are our goals, what have we achieved, where do we need to go from here. So every quarter we are reassessing and trying to develop where we want to go in the next quarter. The other thing is that in conjunction with the probation department, we are looking at a pretrial services program. We have gotten a grant for that so that we can employ at least one person to start to be in the jail, so that when a person is arrested and they are brought in, they can be assessed to see what type of pretrial services would be useful to them during the pendency of their case. The goal is to get them assessed, if possible, within the first 3 days. That has been determined to be the critical period of time. And you do, in Ohio, going back to acronyms, we have what's called an ORAS score, Ohio Risk Analysis Score. And that determines whether a person is likely to reoffend for purposes of sentencing. Well, there's a pretrial version of that called the pretrial ORAS score, which helps you identify if a person is going to be successful on bond and if a person is going to reoffend while on bond.
I see.
So if you can get a person assessed within the first 3 days, that means that by the time they are brought in for their initial arraignment, the judge has enough information to set a meaningful bond and to determine what services may help the person while they are awaiting trial, so that you don't have a lot of downtime.
Sure,
you don't have it.
Excellent
just makes everything
idea.
run more efficiently.
Okay, well, that's kind of falling right into where you want to go here. Okay, got a few minutes left. Can't let you out without asking this one. Why did you decide to run for judge?
This one's embarrassing. It's because I am a true believer. I am that kid in, 5th grade when they handed out the Constitution and said, oh, wow, this is really exciting. And when we covered it again in junior high and in high school, I was the one in history class where my history professor said, do not get a degree in history, do not get a degree in government. There is no future in any of that kind of stuff. I believe that we have the best system of government in the world, and I truly believe in the jury system. It's an opportunity where we trust each other to resolve disputes. And even the people who lose, the people who get found guilty, or the people who don't win in the civil matter, we accept the verdicts of the courts. We have respect for the institution. One of the fascinating things that I've learned, for instance, with the pretrial services, is that 82 to 95% of people will come back to a court date even if you don't give them a monetary bond, because we have that much respect for the courts as a society.
I see.
And I just want to be a person who has the ability to serve in that capacity.
Very interesting, Judge. Well, Judge, we're running out of time, but I don't want to miss the opportunity. I've suggested it a couple times, but as the new year unfolds and you get your recertification, which I guess you're in the process of now, is it done?
The certification is done now, yes.
Okay. But somehow you are going to play a bigger role in this as a mentor. Am I correct about that?
It was suggested by the person who did our certification that we should apply to be a mentor drug court and also to apply to be a medically assisted drug court. There's a big controversy among drug courts in the state of Ohio, but it is considered best practices by the Ohio Supreme Court to definitely consider medically assisted treatment in drug courts.
Okay, so can I put the invitation out to you as you work through the 2016 and these things, that maybe you can come back to Law Talk at the end of maybe 2016 and we'll talk about how that year went?
Nothing would make me happier.
Well, thank you, Judge.
Except for people to come in and watch the court in process.
Well, there you go. Direct invitation from the judge, ladies and gentlemen. Judge, thank you so much for being my guest in Law Talk today.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Comments made by John's guest on Law Talk are solely those of his guest and do not necessarily reflect the views of Celebrezze Zangi Community Legal Education Project. To view this show and others, go to www.czclep.org. In the Wadsworth area, a complete listing of dates and times of this broadcast, tune in to WCTV Channel 15 or log on to wadsworthcity.com and follow the links to WCTV. At CZClep, we're devoted to the education of today's legal issues. Fueled by the public's keen interest in our legal system and current events, CZClep is dedicated to the educational venues aimed at enhancing the understanding by all citizens, regardless of age, education, occupation, or wealth. A function of the Celebrezze Zangi Community Legal Education Project.